Time now for this week's shocking stat. Maybe not a big surprise that my shocking stat this week is 25%. The tariff applied to Canadian steel going into the U.S. And the bonus stat, 10%. The tariff slapped on Canadian aluminum going into the U.S. I say shocking, I think, because few people thought Mr. Trump, would go through what the punitive tariff, that kind of punitive tariff on America's closest allies, Canada, Europe, calling them strategic risks. Maybe what's not so shocking, though, is the president's complete misunderstanding of the benefits of trade, taken right out of the playbook of the anti-free traders in our country, Council of Canadians, BCTF, Organized Labor, and their political allies. His softwood lumber tariffs, by the way, are estimated to cost U.S. consumers an extra $1,000 for a new home. Jim McCreevy, he's president and CEO of the Beer Trade Association, estimates that the proposed 10% aluminum tariff is going to cost American beverage industry $347 million. And some of those costs are going to be passed on consumers. But the other side is it could trigger as many as 20,000 job losses. U.S. Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross doesn't dispute, by the way, that the tariffs are going to cost U.S. consumers. I saw him on CNBC saying there's about a ton of steel in a car. The price of a ton of steel, $700. So 25%, it's going to increase the price of a car, $35,000 car, by $175 extra. Well, I've seen estimates as high as $600 extra for a new manufactured car. But even if it's at the low end, $175. Cato Institute Scott Lincecum says that there's 17.5 million cars were bought in the U.S. last year. That's $3 billion extra dollars to American consumers. And that's just in the car side. And then you got Canada's retaliatory tariffs that are going to cost us as consumers in our country. My hope is that people are finally starting to clue in, both sides of the border, that the protectionist game, and wised up to it, and that the tariffs are nothing more than a tax on consumers. I mean, it's incredible. So here you go. You've got those steel tariffs. It's going to protect 140,000 American steel workers and hurt 44 million consumers in the U.S. That's typical of protectionism. And yet we've had that sold to us aggressively, anti-free trade movements, really without question for years. And the fact is, it's like a masochist thing. It's like the Stockholm Syndrome. We're held hostage by it. No, tariffs are nothing more than taxes on consumers. In this case, Mr. Trump has guaranteed American consumers to pay more. But more, just as devastatingly, it may cause layoffs in other industries while protecting the so-called steel industry and aluminum industry. There you go. I love this quote. A protectionist is someone who argues that you should be poor so that they can be richer.